Welcome back. You're watching Standpoint here on Morning Prime. We continue pace with the conversation. What is hogging most of the headlines today? Raila Ruto, a puppet of Western forces in the standard storm over GMOs. This is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation. And also this is a statement that you have on your screen from the Cabinet Secretary of Trade, Moses Kuria. He says, quote unquote, being in this country, just to remind you, being in this country, you are a candidate for death. And because there are many things competing to kill you in this country, there is nothing wrong with adding GMOs to that list. So I want holding court this morning with Yusuf Hassan, who is a member of parliament for Kamukunji. Also we have David Cheng, member of parliament of Ugenya. Also we have member of parliament of Kitui Central. This is Dr. Makalimulu, and also the senator of Umet, Hilary Sigay. I just want to hear from Yusuf Hassan on that particular statement, first of all, and where we're headed with GMO debate.
Well, I have commented on the remarks of the CS before, when he spoke about Mitumba,
yes,
also in a very kind of unguided, unreasonable way. So I think his statement is unacceptable, outrageous, and is not becoming of the role that he occupies as a cabinet secretary in the Republic of Kenya. And I think he should be very careful. And I said in that statement in Parliament that it appears as if his brain is disconnected from his mouth, and he can say whatever he wants. And yet he is a leader, and some of his utterances have serious consequences for our economy, because the comments leaders make has an impact on the economy. And so one should be very, very careful, particularly now that he is the Minister for Trade and Industrialization, two important components, engines of our development. But I wanted to say that, that there is no doubt that with more research and more rational discussion and debate, Kenya can benefit from GMO. You know, it's not something we would totally dismiss. But I think the debate should be centered on the negative impact of GMO in terms of biodiversity, in terms of the impact it will have on our food production, our food culture, and the traditional way of us producing what we eat. What the problem is that the GMO crops are dominated by three giants from the United States. And they determine the type of seedlings that you should have, which means that once we go that way, we will be losing our own independence of food production. We will be dependent on seedlings from foreign companies. In other countries, GMO has been indigenized through scientific research by indigenous companies and universities. But in our particular case, we're completely going to be dependent on the science and technology of big transnationals who are seeing farming and production and seedlings as a commercial venture, the commodification of seeds. And it is going to crossbreed. Once these seeds arrive here, it will crossbreed with our own seeds and take control, the genes take over. And this is what people don't realize, is that it will destroy a lot of the production of small farmers. Millions of our small farmers will go out of business and will start buying these seedlings and seeds from these multinationals. And you don't have ownership of the type of seeds you buy. It will just become another commodity. Because the patent remains with the multinationals. Yes, exactly. And there are cases where these big companies have sued farmers who did not buy those seeds, but whose crops were affected by the pullant, by the crossbreeding from those farms nearby. You know, through the cross-pollination. Yes. Yeah, cross-pollination through air, through other factors. So I would think that if we're really seriously looking at using science and technology to increase our production, we should have the ownership of that. And we should concentrate on millet, sorghum, and other traditional grains and foods. You know, like Ethiopia. Ethiopians don't eat any imported grains. They eat their own indigenous. You go to Uganda, there's a big tradition of using indigenous foods in their daily cuisines and daily foods. Mm-hmm. So that's actually what we should be looking at. And we should be careful because the long-term permanent damage of introducing GMO food, like this particular case, maize from outside, is not reversible. It will destroy and impoverish our people. So what we are saying is that, yes, of course, we can benefit from science and technology to advance our food production. Mm-hmm. But this should be debated. This should be not something a cabinet secretary or some few people, a tiny section of the population, can wake up one morning and say, bingo, we're going to go GMO tomorrow. We require time. We require also to involve the people whom it is going to affect, the millions of Kenyan farmers who are going to be impoverished and put out of business. And it's not something abstract. It has happened in India. India's Green Revolution went the same way. They introduced GMO, and millions of Indian peasants went out of business as a result of that. And even now, if you read stories out of India, you'd find a lot of Indian peasants committing suicide mm-hmm. because they cannot meet their daily necessities, although GMO has been introduced in some areas. I do agree that, in fact, the emphasis should be on the non-consumption aspect of agricultural production. For example, if we want to increase our cotton yield, mm-hmm. if we want to introduce new varieties, but who owns that science, who owns that technology, and who owns that business is important. We would become another colony of these multinationals if we go that direction. And when you look at the issue of the importation, what is this mad rush to import without any public debate? Who is benefiting from it? I think there appears to be a minority interest in this particular case to cash on this particular opportunity that the maize importation is going to provide. It has nothing to do with the hunger or the starvation that we have, because there's a lot of non-GMO maize on the market. As we have heard from our colleagues here, Kenyan farmers are producing maize. Uganda has maize. Tanzania has maize. There are a number of other African countries that can provide us with the right seeds, the right maize, without taking the risk of going to bring in millions and millions of bags of yellow maize. We don't need that. It is dangerous. It will have serious consequences and long-term impact on our farmers. It is not something we can leave it, a debate we can leave for some few people. It is something that should be open, discussed, the pros and cons to be looked at it.
Thank you.
And finally we make the right decision for our country and for our farmers.
So what immediate action or interventions are we getting from the legislators? You were seated here then. We have this issue on the table. Then what is the way forward?
You know the balance is, I don't know, you know, when you look at the legislators like us, our work is normally to legislate and provide the legal framework required to have some of these things in place. I really don't think we have a serious legal gap, as we said earlier. Because if you look at the acts of parliament, which give mandate to some of these quality and control institutions, they are very clear in terms of what they need to do. But I think what we are suffering in the ball, and this is the issue we are raising, is the issue of trust. You know, for example, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, they will always stamp any good coming in the country, that they have looked at the good, it meets the required standards, and then it can go to the market. The same with the ones which take care of the food products. But the challenge has always been, at times you would see those stamps on the products, but later Kenyans would even die of the same products because they don't meet the expected standards. So to me, are we in a position as Kenyans to trust our own institutions whom we have mandated to ensure that the quality of the goods getting to the country meets the standards, and basically the international standards? And you know, you can't legislate trust issues. Because if you have been given a mandate by you have an act of parliament which mandates you on what to do legally, and then you don't do it in line with the requirements, maybe because corruption issues are coming, because as you say, there's a lot of, some of these things lead to exchange of a lot of money, basically, because you have a product which if it gets to the market, you can end up with your billions of shillings. And I think the issue, the reason why I was talking about public participation earlier, is just to give Kenyans that confidence. Because, in the past in this country, Kenyans have died because of eating contaminated maize. This maize has already been cleared by these same farms. Kenyans have gone to, like the cancer issues. There are lots of, you remember there was an issue, I don't know, was it leading in Mombasa somewhere? Where Kenyans also died, despite the fact that government institutions had cleared the companies to conduct mining. So I think about what we are saying is, how do we build the trust of Kenyans? And that's why I said the issue of public participation, that give Kenyans a chance to come to the table and say, why are they not convinced that GMO products might be of benefit to this country? And look at all the issues. Scientists will have done their work in the labs, will have given us their conclusions.
Thank you.
But at the end of the day, the consumer is just a normal Kenyan out there, either in Kitui or in Bomet or in Mombasa or in Ugenya. That's the consumer. And the consumer needs to be assured that when I go out there and buy this product, I'm buying the right product that will have no effects to my health. And that's why you see when you go to countries like developed countries like America, the institutions which have been given that mandate.
Thank you.
They are so keen on their work.
I believe that Parliament has a role in this. That Parliament, first of all, can stop this morning any further dealing with GMO products until we as Parliament have consulted and are convinced why the body is concerned. Because the issue, if the issue is the standards, the issue is the quality, the issue is safety, then we have institutions, not just KEBS. We've set up very institutions, like I think 4 of them. We have biodiversity institution, we have science, acoustic. We have a couple of institutions in this country that are supposed to help with that, with their chain. And I believe that, there shouldn't be a hurry in this. If Kenyans are raising issues, and this is not a Kenya Kwanza Azimio issue, no, this is a Kenyan issue, an issue that people have, you've had the church, or everyone is talking about this. This Parliament should take charge of this debate, bring all the players in this field. Let us be convinced that we need this, and that if we need it, let us be able to say to what extent do we need it, and what is the pacing of it. Do we need it yesterday, today, or in 10 years? I think that's what Parliament can do at this point in time, by holding our leaders to account and ensuring that the decisions that are making reflect the diversity and the views of the Kenyans.
Thank you.
Ibal, you asked about what the Parliament can do in terms of legislation, and my colleague has been put. We have laws that actually governs the importation or utilization of GMO in the country. There is what you call a Biosafety Act, I believe, sometimes in
National
2010, yes, which was passed. And there are regulations thereafter which were also enacted by Parliament, which would guide on the use, importation, and it includes the earlier concern that you asked about in terms of, do we want to ensure that we mark them in the shelves so that we know this is a product of GMO and this is not. So it is there. The law is in place. What we should ask ourselves is the conversation that Honorable Yusuf said. Let us center all the aspects of importation of GMO products in context, and let us have our people get to understand beyond just the business enterprise that we are looking at. What are the negatives of use of these GMO products in the country? What are the gains that we would get, because we cannot run away from technology, we cannot run away from the improvement of our production and also enhancing the production in terms of agriculture. And when we do that, it also helps us to ensure that whatever discussions which are going on, we enhance the alternatives so that our people have a choice. If we are talking about food security, what is it that we can do to make sure that we have sufficient supplies of food? We also, in this case, I'm looking at having this law in place does not mean that we are all experts. The way we have discussed here, we cannot claim to be all a know-it-all on matters GMO, such that there are institutions which are involved in research work. Can we avail these research resolutions and studies for the consumption of the public, so that the public can have a conversation around all these issues and get to know how then can we improve production without diving into, for example, a full GMO country, or what are the exposures that we can get as a country when we use these products. And I believe when it gets to that level, the debate will not be whether it is GMO or not. The debate will not be the statement by the Cabinet Secretary, which I totally disapprove of. The debate should be to what extent then can we, for example, have a conversation on what are the things that we need to do to enhance local production of the agricultural and maize or products that we need vis-a-vis the business enterprise and the world that we are working with in terms of improved and enhanced technology in production and the use and consumption of GMO products. If we were to look at now the whole in that context, I'm very sure tomorrow if Parliament were to sit and debate on whether GMO or not, everyone will be speaking in the context of what are the negatives and positives of this. And I think that should be the direction to go. But then making a declaration, a popular statement, is not really the best that we are looking at as a country, as legislators, as Kenyans, because we want to go beyond the general conversation of issuing a statement merely to make it known in the public that so-and-so has spoken today about this. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I wanted to just briefly, unless there is any other comment on GMOs, we can wind it up. And
I just wanted to add,
yes.
the issue of oversight. You know, the fact that this debate is now all over the place, there is no harm the committee in charge of this particular docket summoning different stakeholders just to keep the debate alive and get more information. Because I think what we are lacking basically is information. We would want to get evidence-informed decisions so that we can say what is really the issue. The scientists will talk to the committee will talk to the Kenyans public, and they will talk even to the ministry, and talk even to the executive, the concerned minister, to find out really what is going forward.
I expected the legislators will interrogate the question of...
Yeah, that's the thing.
Professor Dairu came up with that particular report on the GMOs, and this also informed the banning of the GMO. So what other report do we have? That now we've come to a point of lifting this particular ban, and where is the public participation, as you say?
That's what I'm saying. Oversight. You know, we have just formed the committees. Now that the committees are in place, that relevant committee in the 13th Parliament can actually take over this matter from an oversight side. Now, not from a legal, not from a lawmaking side, but from an oversight side, so that now they put this debate into context by making sure that all key stakeholders are informed, and then there is a... I want Kenyans to be aware. Just get the information, push the information to Kenyans. Even you, the issue of labeling. Let's find out why are they not labeling, so that Kenyans are aware. Anytime I walk to a supermarket, like Honorable Cheng said down here,
it is their right to. Yes.
I'll be able to see these are GMOs, these are local products, and then I can make a choice as a consumer.
Indeed, indeed. So I want just to flag this particular question on it was in yesterday's. Senate Nation. We could just pick it up and ask, we have a new chair of KRA, and the questions are also abounding right now as to the regard of his integrity. We have questions of sort of impropriety hanging over him, and this was in page 14 of the Sunday Nation. New KRA board boasts battling graft case. The Asset Recovery Agency wants, as it says here, Mwaura's property and bank accounts are frozen. If we just pick it up, we can read with the verse together. Then we buckle down on it. And this is a story by Brian Wasuna there. He says the appointment of Mr. Anthony Nganga Mwaura as Kenya Revenue Authority board chairman has added a growing list of high-ranking officials fighting corruption cases in court. Mr. Mwaura, who took over from Francis Mudhaura, assumes office with a case filed by the Assets Recovery Agency hanging over his head. Assets and money owned by his companies were frozen following reports that they were acquired using funds stolen from public coffers or diverted for individual benefit. Mr. Maura's two construction companies, Hardy Enterprises and Todi Civil Engineering, were implicated in the alleged 357 million shillings fraud and corruption scandal at City Hall during the tenure of Governor Mike Sonko. And now that's a man that we've chosen to actually head over Kenya Revenue Authority. Let me hear from you, Yusuf Hassan.
Well, sure. I think it's important to revisit our constitutional guidelines and our laws in terms of integrity. And if you look at Chapter 6, in any normal country, no public official would put his name forward for an appointment. If they are faced with cases of that kind, they usually step aside or they avoid the limelight so that their rights to defend themselves in a court of law are not violated in the public eye. And I think one would have expected a better choice and a better option because the Kenya Revenue Authority needs to collect as much revenue as possible to keep our country going. Taxation is the only way, collecting our own taxes and financing our own development programs is one way of reinforcing our sovereignty and also growing our economy. And it's important, and I support the government initiative in terms of raising as much tax as possible. But when you give that job to someone under suspicion, someone who has a problem, who is facing a corruption charges, then you're undermining the ability of that institution to be able to do its job and to collect the revenues. You're undermining the confidence of the public that in fact their tax, the money that they're paying, is not going to be wasted and that it will be used for the good reasons that they're giving it out to. So I think it would have been much better for the president to appoint someone above board, someone that all Kenyans agree with, someone who does not have a baggage, even though the argument is always that innocent until proven guilty. But I, in this particular case, feel disappointed in the sense that you would need a much more effective person at that job. And also, the government has not really much pronounced itself on how it is going to deal with wastage, leakage, and the widespread corruption and misuse and abuse and embezzlement of public funds, which is another factor that we collect a lot of money. We collect a lot of taxes. But there's a question mark on what happens to some percentage, significant percentage of that money. And even if you go around government offices, you would see freshly cut flour. Flour has been delivered to some of those government offices. Taxpayers' money. You would see entertainment happening on a high scale. You would see unnecessary and extravagant travel to overseas trip or to exotic holiday destinations. All of this, and even the point that you had raised of 15 members of parliament going to the World Cup, you know, that's taxpayers' money. So I think it is a bad start for the Kenya Revenue Authority, particularly now that the president wants to raise the bar. This weekend, he has indicated that he would like the collection to go from 2 trillion to 5 trillion. This sounds almost an impossible task, but it will have been, his pronouncement would have been aided if the chairman of the Kenya Revenue Authority was a squeaky clean, respected, and a person who is really qualified to do that particular job. So this is a bad start for our ability to be able to create the confidence that we need and also to show the way forward, that Kenya now is moving on to deal with issues of corruption, zero tolerance to people who might be involved in it. And also, I think we should also respect ourselves as Kenyans. If you are facing charges of corruption, why don't you spend the time to defend yourself and clean your name in the court of law and avoid accepting appointments to positions of this kind.
He did.
And why would the president be choosing, since we have 50 million Kenyans to choose from, why does he choose someone with a baggage, someone who is facing charges of corruption himself,
Thank you,
as the chairman of the Kenya Revenue Authority, of all institutions?
Good question. And it just reminds me of what happened last week. Just reading about the Rwandan MP who resigned after drunk driving. And just reading here, it says Rwandan MP, this is Mboni Mana, has apologized to Rwandans for drink driving. Mboni Mana had on Monday, which is last week, tendered his resignation letter to Parliament. In a statement on his Twitter handle, Mboni Mana says he had decided to stop the intake of alcohol. The president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, had criticized the MP for the act, which carries a fine of 150,000 Rwandan francs and 5 days in police custody. President Kagame was also furious at police for not arresting Mboni Mana for drink driving. Mr. Mboni Mana, a member of Liberty Party, he says has been an MP since 2018. If you are caught up in a drunken stupor and you have the burden of conscience to actually resign and apologize to Rwandans for that matter, in this country this will never happen. And this is what we are seeing right now. You can actually even get appointment with such cases hanging over you still, and you don't have the conscience and the temerity to just say, no, I have these cases which is hanging over me, and I don't feel like right now my conscience will allow me to step up to the plate to be the chair of this particular board. So what can we learn from Rwanda? David, I think it's David, it's you. Sequentially,
issue,
then I have Hillary.
Actually, I'm conflicted and I have no comment on it. I
You're conflicted?
He's my very close friend.
He's your close friend.
I don't want to comment on this matter. I think I'm allowed to say that
Yeah.
on television.
Okay.
And refrain from making any comment, either positive or negative, on the matter.
But you can comment on Rwanda.
The Rwanda one, I think, is spot on. I will do the same.
You'll do the same?
Yes.
So next time we catch you...
I will do the same. I don't drink, so I will not get drunk. But if I'm found if I'm found in my phone...
That's whether you would resign.
I would. I would. I mean, I've made decisions in my life that suggest that I personally carry my word. You can take my word to the bank. If I wouldn't, I would probably comment on Maura's issue. But he's my close friend, and I don't want to cast a person.
I respect that.
I just wanted to throw in something in there. I think the problem in Kenya, having lived in many other countries, is that the standard, the line to cross is never accepted as a wrong. There are many corrupt activities that are happening in our society, but society does not see this as sins, ethical or moral issues that need to be dealt with. They just see them as just part of our daily life. That's why I think our threshold is much lower than other countries, is that we don't condemn actions like that. We have accepted them and they have become the standard.
Thank you. Hillary, if maybe he was arraigned, because here we normally say you have to be proven, right? Innocent.
Proven guilty.
Yeah. So until they decide that you were guilty in the courts. So I wonder if it was in this country and he was taken to the courts to prove that he was drunk. Alcohol as well will have been taken alongside him to try and
the fact that
to prove that he's not drunk.
The fact that he's resigned in his own volition, the bar, is a confirmation of the guilt in him. And I also applaud him. I wish we could have such people.
I think it's
such
only
leaders.
the conscience.
The conscience, right, yeah, well put, yes. Because when your conscience tells you this is wrong, the public expects you to behave in a certain manner, especially being a leader, an elected leader for that matter, such that for one to make such a decision, it's worth commenting. And I'm very sure his conscience will put him back. And to the extent of the comments that you read, that he said he has made a decision to let go of drinking, it's a good thing. What we should ask ourselves is, would we really have such characters back here home who would make very bold decisions on the basis of their conscience when they know they have done wrong, especially being a state officer or a public officer or a leader for whatever description you can give? When you know I have made a mistake, it is the wrong thing, and therefore the only available option is to lead by example, because that way it is the only choice that someone who is in his right conscience as a leader would do. I applaud him. No wonder in Rwanda we have fully, we have a very good example of how legislations have been implemented in terms of environmental protection, in terms of the tuk-tuks on the road, traffic compliance and all that. It is the path that has been set. It's that high. Everyone who is unable to meet, drop the ball, leave it to someone else who can comply. That would also be my thing. And I want to encourage the rest of us to also try and, if possible, set the path up where it's supposed to be, especially as leaders in elective positions as state officers and what have you. Back to the position of the chair.
Right, I thought actually you were escaping that. So I'll take you back there. That's Hillary is furtively.
I'll say it like this. Anthony Mauro is equally my good friend and my client.
Oh, he is, okay.
Yes. And the story that we read yesterday in the papers indeed confirmed that there is still pending litigation in court. Mm-hmm. And therefore, as to whether or not the chairman has issues, it's not a conversation that we can have here. Mm-hmm. Because we cannot also purport to discuss that which is before the court of law as at now.
But we don't really discuss the content of the merit of the youth, but we're just looking at the moral
in terms of
input of this to the public. That's now you're fully aware this is in court right now. Should you go full steam ahead, or you will also go with a particular, bent that everyone wants to, that until proven guilty,
I'll use your own words.
Innocent.
I'll use your own words. He's innocent until proven guilty. He's entitled under Article 25 and 50 to have a fair trial until the completion of that process. As of now,
that's the law. Yeah. Where is the morality? That's the law. That's what the law says. But also I know in legal school you also where you learn where the moral conscience also takes precedence of a law.
No, it doesn't.
No, I'm asking, not precedence really, but where is the law? If it's not really precedence, but there is law. There is a law and there is a spirit of a law, which we don't see the spirit of a law. You can talk about the spirit of a law.
I would want to leave it at that.
Okay, I respect that.
The unspoken about the read my lips. Yes. So you read our lips.
Okay.
Yes. The bar, what my colleagues are not telling you is that there are things they cannot say here. They might be able to say them in boardrooms, but not here. And the truth of the matter, the bar is, what Honorable from Kamukunji was saying, my friend, is that we have Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which is clear on leadership issues. But the thing is, we are not following the Chapter 6. And I've said many times, I think the boy you can bear me witness, here on this table, I've said the current government, when it comes to matters corruption, those ones are taken a back burner. The truth of the matter is, look at who is Mwaura taking over from. He's taking over from Mwaura as the chair of KRA. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Mwaura has been a public servant for over 50 years. The only time he was dragged to a court is on the post-election violence.
The ICC.
Nothing else. It matters public finance and management, he didn't have an issue. This particular gentleman called Mwaura, I'm lucky I don't know him because he's not my client. But I want to comment as a Kenyan. Mm-hmm. The fact that the Assets Recovery Authority has proposed to the court that some of his assets might need to be investigated as to how he got them is a clear point that there could be some issues which are not clear. I'm sure they were appointing authority and done some due diligence in terms of checking who is this character who we are going to appoint to head this important institution. KRA is an institution which currently is collecting 2.1 trillion on behalf of Kenyans and pushing that money to the consolidated fund for use. It is the same authority expected to collect between 4 and 5 trillion, which President Ruto has said he would wish to see that money is collected. Then the figurehead of that important institution, you put somebody who from the word go has some question marks, whether proved right or wrong, but the fact that there are some question marks on this particular individual, you are telling Kenyans you are not serious about the issue of corruption. You will be cleared at the right point, you might be cleared. But the fact that from the word go, this paper called The Nation, somebody has gone out there, done some research, and bringing out issues saying this particular individual has issues in court, has issues which might be in conflict with the Chapter 6 of the Constitution. If I were the appointing authority, I would have suspended that appointment till the matters in the court are cleared. And Kenya is not short of people who can occupy that position. I'm sure it is not short of. So to me, I think just as it happened, the CSCs, you know, they came to Parliament during the vetting. You saw many of them had also issues to do with integrity issues. That you were in charge of this particular thing, it didn't go through. At the end of the day, they got appointed because, as I have told you many times, the way Parliament operates is this issue of the majority will have their way, the minority will have their say. So to me, Dibal, from where I sit, and I think that's why you find my colleagues are in some tricky situation because, you know, they're in that side of the government. We are discussing governance issues. And governance issues will not matter whether Ocheng is my good friend. We have been in Parliament for now together. And I can tell you there are things, even at our level, despite him being my friend, the reason I like him, we all behave the same. He keeps his word, I keep my word. When I say, if I were him, actually I would have declined this appointment. I would have told the appointing authority, please allow me to go through these issues so that I don't raise question marks to this important office in this republic. And that can take about a year, and then he will be appointed. It will not cost him anything, just waiting. But I don't know, I'm sure very soon he'll be sworn in, if there's any swearing in, which I doubt. But you know, this is an executive appointment, it doesn't come to Parliament. So we'll not get a time to bring out these issues. Kenyans can only read them in the Daily Nation. Parliament will not have any chance to interrogate this particular individual bring out some of the issues. But we are just saying, it's actually a bad start from the appointing authority that you can put somebody into this important office.
Right. Actually.
Somebody who Kenyans have already doubts as to whether he will be the right person there or not there. And we are telling Kenyans, lipa ushuru, kulipa ushuru kujitengemea. Sasa hata mimi nitaanza kujiuliza maswali, ninalipa ushuru kujitengemea na ninaweka ushuru yangu kwa mikono ya mtu ambaye tayari hata ingawa koti haijasema ana shida, kuna dalili ya kwamba ataweza kuwa na shida. These are the questions Kenyans are asking.
Where we stop for time. Let's just wind up on this.
It is no good for us to be hiding behind guilty, innocent until proven guilty, which is constantly used. If you look at the Chapter 6, Leadership and Integrity section, chapter in our Constitution, number 73, and you go to 73.2. It said the guiding principle of leadership integrity include selection on the basis of personal integrity, competence and sustainability, suitability, or election in free and fair elections, objectivity and impartiality in decision making, ensuring that decisions are not influenced by nepotism, favoritism, or other improper motives and corrupt practices. Selfless service based solely on the public interest, demonstrated 1. Honesty in the execution of public duties, the declaration of any person's interests that may conflict with public duties, accountability to the public for decisions and actions. And I raise this, and discipline and commitment in the service to the people. You know, the drafters, the legal scholars and eminent lawyers who drafted this constitution obviously knew that the Kenyan citizen had the right to be protected under the law and be innocent until proven guilty. But they added this as an extra measurement to guide us in our selection. And in the case that you have raised of the president of Rwanda, The MP did not resign on his own volition, by the way. He resigned only after the president, as the leader of the country, as the protector of the constitution, pronounced himself on that element. And here, the question is, why is our president, who is sworn to protect our constitution, appointing people who have ethical and moral issues and who have corruption charges, who are facing corruption charges in a court of law? Why? Why doesn't he lead us and show us by example that he is not going to tolerate corruption or any other misbehavior, ethically and morally? Why doesn't he lead the country by appointing people who can pass the integrity test?
Thank you, thank you. Deputy Cheng, let's get your headline thoughts. Hillary, and of course also Dr. Makali, just get your headline thoughts. I think we don't have time to discuss what is on page 6 of the Star. You're escaping this dragnet as well. Bill that is seeking hefty packs for one-term MPs.
No, we should go there.
We don't have time.
I think it's just that, but
you can just give it as you can comment it as your headline thoughts.
Which leadership in this country now should be meant to serve. Yeah, leadership is just meant to serve. The idea that people come to public office to enrich themselves is something that we should start dealing with, and it's tied to what the Honorable Yusuf has just read here. I mean, we need to decide as a country whether we want to have Chapter 6 of the Constitution or not. Because I tell you, perhaps Chapter 6 is now observed not in compliance, but in contravention, if you ask me. You could easily count in your fingers here members of parliament who have no cases. You could easily count in your fingers members of cabinet who have no cases. And this is not justice government.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think globally, I would like to say, one, members of the public, look out for the Hustler Fund post 30th of November. Go for it. Let's not have fears. Go for the money. Use it to build yourself going forward. And finally, I hope that we can have an agreement, one that all of us agrees with, when it comes to GMOs.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hillary?
Thank you, Dibal. As I close, I also first of all want to wish the candidates of this year's KCP examinations, which are due next week, success. We had an opportunity over the weekend to speak to a number of them in my county. To the country, I want to wish them the very best. And back to the global issue that we have. Last week we had Bill Gates around in the country. And the conversations that went around, the meetings that he had, the decisions that he had, gave a clean bill of some vote of confidence in the new government. And I want to encourage the people to also have a similar confidence, so that as we go forward, we have a very positive mind towards building the bridges, coming together the way we did in the ELA elections that ended and everyone else went home happy, and a number of people having been given positions, so that as we close this political season, which I hope will come to a close by the end of the year, then we have the confidence to move into the new year with gusto and people investing in building this country, in creating cohesion and the betterment of the society at large.
Thank you. Thank you, Hillary. Dr. Makali.
Just to join my colleague senator in terms of wishing the candidates. You know, we have 3 levels now. Standard 6, Standard 8, and then the Form 4s. Wish them well in their exams. We know exams are there just to test what they have learned, not to kill them, so they should not panic. Let them relax. But in terms of GMO, I think let's just push the debate to the next level, whereby we delay the importation of maize, and as Kenyans discuss this matter to logical conclusion, where we'll be convinced that now we can either get the maize here or not. But last but not least, Dibal, I think the debate on
we can reserve this for next week.
We can do it next week.
Yeah, let's do it.
But I want to assure you, this is just already done before it will be killed. This has been done more than 10 times in Parliament. It has never seen the end of the light. And Achen can confirm, even Mweshima can confirm.
Thank you.
But it's a good publicity thing, you know.
Thank you. Yusuf,
Yes.
briefly, 20 seconds.
I think also the GMO, we must stop the importation of GMO maize. We should concentrate on non-GMO maize. if it is a crisis and we need maize very quickly into the country. And we must give our farmers time to harvest, and the government must ensure that they buy the maize that is locally available before they bring in this foreign. And I think I wanted to quickly speak also on something that is happening on the foreign relations.
I'm being hounded out of studio right now. We can actually reserve that for next week if it's still an evergreen issue, right? Thank you so very much, Mheshimiwa. We'll pick up that next week. I want to thank you very much for enlightening Kenya on a raft of issues, especially on GMO, and also, right, on regarding integrity and some of the offices here in the country. We should have the burden of conscience to question ourselves if really we do pass muster as far as Chapter 6 of the Constitution is concerned. And this also is just that you be in the know. This is what is in the Star this morning. There's a bill that is seeking hefty perks for one-term MPs, it says. If my director may just pick it up briefly, the lawmakers will be entitled to either pension or gratuity if proposal is enacted. And it says MPs, briefly, it says MPs, you just go there briefly, MPs who serve for only one term will be entitled to lump sum gratuity over lifetime monthly pension if a proposed law is enacted. Lawmakers are seeking to amend the Parliamentary Pension Act to also allow widows and widowers of MPs access pension or gratuity even if their spouses served for less than 9 months. It can only happen in this country. We take a short break right now. Thank you. It would happen. All right. It would, but even having just the temerity of raising such... Thank you very much. In a moment, of course, we shall continue with the sports chat, looking at what is happening in the world of soccer right now in Qatar. And my colleague Jeff Mogire is standing by just to analyze that particular game yesterday, Qatar. And of course, and Ecuador. Thank you very much for your valued company. Have a good one.